You have beliefs that are limiting, that are ingrained typically in your subconscious, that says you can't do this. And as long as that's there, it's like a governor in a car. You're not going to be able to go above that speed limit. Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome, 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 welcome. When you hear those words, you know what time it is, right? It's time for Life of a CISO with yours truly. Dr. E is in the house. I'm in the studio. I'm in a great mood, and you know why? I get to spend some time with you. Right? It is virtual. It is one way, but I still love sharing information, and I also love getting feedback from you. So if you have any questions, comments, or just general feedback on our Life of a CISO podcast, just post some comments below. We're going on over hundreds of episodes. I think this is episode 114 or 115, if my calculation is correct. I forget. I just have so much fun. If we can help you in any way, shape, or form, please let us know. Remember, there's great resources. If you haven't picked up your copy of Cyber Crisis, I know it's surprisingly over a year old now, but it's still very, very relevant. I get a lot of executives that give a lot of positive feedback. So if you're in that situation where you either want to become a CISO at your organization or you're a CISO and you're struggling with communication, not only is giving Cyber Crisis a great gift to your executives because it's an easy read. Trust me, they're curious about cybersecurity. They might not read it cover to cover, but almost every executive I've given it to cracks it opens, reads some chapters. Also, another great use for Cyber Crisis is for you to read it. It shows you the language and level of technology you should communicate to your executives. One of my favorite comments from Cyber Crisis, and it shouldn't be, because I believe I haven't checked in a couple of weeks, but as of a couple of weeks ago, it was the only 1-star rating that somebody gave me. And I know when I tell people this, they're like, wait, your favorite comment is somebody who hated your book? I'm like, no, it's somebody who misunderstood the book. Now, I wish they didn't give me 1 star. I wish they would have reached out to me so I could have explained to them that they were absolutely correct, right? But they gave me 1 star, and their comment was, this book is not technical enough. It's way too high level. It covers concepts in a way that a non-technical person could understand, and I wanted something a lot more technical. And I'm sort of like, dude, you bought the wrong book, right? It's like going in and getting a smart car and writing in the review, I wanted a car that can go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, and this car just doesn't have the performance that I required. Yeah, you should have bought a Lamborghini, right? You should have bought a Porsche, right? You don't buy a smart car for that, right? If you want technical knowledge and technical in-depth, that's where my other books like Advanced Persistent Threat, not hiding in plain sight, that's steganography, but Network Security Bible, that's where those other books go really in-depth. But if you don't realize it, in the last few years, I've started shifting my focus. When I started teaching and writing in the late 1990s, early 2000, to me, the big problem was there wasn't enough technical people in the space. So you'll notice my initial teaching was on technical knowledge, technical transfer, getting people started in the field of cybersecurity. And my books were technical focused. Hackers Beware, Network Security Bible, version 1, version 2, Advanced Persistent Threat, Hiding in Plain Sight. But in the last couple of years, I realized that there is enough technical people. There's a lot of brilliant, now we need more, right? We need a lot more, but there's a ton of resources. There's a ton of resources, a ton available to get people started in cybersecurity. But where we are struggling in the field of cybersecurity is that there's not enough people at the executive level that understand cyber. To them, it's a mystery. To them, their idea of cybersecurity is the news. which means only large companies get breached once every 4 months, which isn't the truth. There's not enough books to help non-technical folks. So that's why around 3 or 4 years ago, I wrote Online Danger. That was for parents and teachers and non-technical folks. Then I wrote Cyber Crisis, which was focused in on helping executives, helping CEOs, COOs, CFOs understand the real problem at a high level, and helping CISOs understand this is how you talk to executives. So it's actually a dual-pronged book. One, it can help executives educate, and two, it can help CISOs show this is the level you need to communicate at. So definitely want to pick that up. One of my favorite stories, and I have lots of them, as you know, but one of my favorite stories is the story of the 4-minute mile. And I know a long, long time ago in a land far, far away, right, I talked about it, but every time I go and put together a podcast, just so you know, I spend a lot of time beforehand just journaling, researching, talking to my clients, and finding out sort of what is the trends right now that I'm noticing. What are the patterns that I'm seeing that people need the most help with? And the one that I've been seeing a lot, especially with my new clients, and want to share with you today in this podcast, is this idea of limiting beliefs. And it's amazing because you'll hear me say it a lot, and I do it on these podcasts, I do it with my coaching. You come to me or you listen to this podcast because you want something. You want a certain area. However, it's not what you need. It's not what you might want that, but it's not really what you need. The best example is that you haven't eaten in a while and you're super hungry, so you really want a hamburger, a pizza, something along those lines. But in reality, what you really need is hydration. What you really need is water, right? So I'm going to give you both. I'm going to give you the meal that you want, and I'm going to give you the hydration that you need. But what most people want when they come to me is saying, Eric, I want to get promoted. I want to have a seat at the table. I want to get my first CISO job. And I know that fits most of you that are listening. And I need the CISO knowledge. That's what I want. I want to think like a CISO, act like a CISO, breathe like a CISO, and I give that to you. However, what's really holding you back is not that. That'll help you. That's never going to hurt you. But the thing that's really holding you back is you don't believe you can run a 4-minute mile. You have beliefs that are limiting, that are ingrained typically in your subconscious, that says you can't do this. And as long as that's there, it's like a governor in a car. You're not going to be able to go above that speed limit. If you have a governor in a car that says this automobile will not go above 60, you can go 40, you can go 50, you can go 60. It's not going to let you go above 60. Many of us have those built-in governors, and until we become aware of them, recognize that there's no truth to them, and then start putting in what I call empowering truths, that's when everything changes for you. That's why I'm so well known as the guy that gets people their first CISO job. Because we have people that have been trying to get a CISO job for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and they have these limiting beliefs, I'm not CISO material. Nobody's going to hire me. And as long as they're there, you're right. Right? Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're absolutely correct. You're spot on. And what most training does is they ignore that. They focus on, okay, we're going to give you more information on CISO. We're going to teach you more information about finances and presenting and executive boards and all that, that's all good. But as long as you have a belief that you can't run the 4-minute mile, in your case, your 4-minute mile is you're not CISO material, or your 4-minute mile is no one's going to hire you. As long as that belief is there, you can train as hard as you want, but that governor is not going to allow you to do that. So for those that haven't heard the story, Prior to 1954, it was believed that a human being could not run a mile in under 4 minutes. If you go back and look at the literature in the 20s and the 30s and even the 40s, it's crazy. I mean, there's articles written that say that if the human runs a mile in under 4 minutes, it will create so much pressure on the heart that your heart will explode. That the muscle structure in human beings is not capable of running that fast. And human beings will collapse, or muscles will tear, or, I mean, it's all this crazy stuff. And the funny thing about it is, people believed it. It wasn't true. It wasn't factual based. And many of the people that was putting out this propaganda weren't even medical doctors, right? There wasn't any real scientific medical proof to back it up, but people believed it. Everyone believed that it wasn't possible to run the mile in under 4 minutes. Now just stop today. Think of how worse it is now. This was in 1930, 1940, where there was all this propaganda. But remember, there wasn't social media. There wasn't all this online communication. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have iPads, right? The news media, I don't know when CNN and Fox formed. I think they were in the 60s or 70s, to be honest with you. So I don't even know if mainstream media was around or everyone had TVs or things like that. So imagine how much worse it is today. How much worse it is for you going in on social media and people reinforcing false beliefs. People reinforcing you can't do it. I go in on some of these forums where these folks are like, I'm trying to get a job as a CISO. And you have some people that mean well and some ill-intent people, but I see them post back, oh, unless you have 12 years experience as a senior engineer, you will never be able to get a job as a CISO. Now, if you have 3 or 4 years and you read that, what happens to your brain? Limiting belief. You now believe unless you have 12 years experience, you won't be able to get a job. And then you post a little more and other people go, oh, unless you have an MBA, you won't be able to get a job as a CISO. Boom. Your brain reads that, now limiting belief. If I don't have an MBA, and then if you didn't work for the government, you won't be able to become a CISO. Boom, that good. And you see all of a sudden, without realizing it, just reading this garbage that's out there, you now start forming all these beliefs that you can't do it and you're not CISO material. Most people don't even realize it's out there. That's why you have to be so careful of what you read, what you listen to, and whose advice you take. I will tell you right now, you absolutely can become a CISO without an MBA. You absolutely can become a CISO without working for the government. You absolutely can become a CISO without having 12 years technical experience. And how do I know? Because I'm working with people every day that are breaking the 4-minute mile. So I always urge you, when you get advice from folks, make sure you go in and say, okay, is this 100% true? Is this a data point? Right? I was arguing with somebody who's like, Eric, it's impossible. I love when people say that word. It's impossible for somebody to get a job as a CISO that hasn't been an engineer for 12 years. And I'm like, impossible? That means no one can do it. I said, I know 6 people that I work with that just got top-notch CISO positions that have 4 to 5 years experience. And they're like, well, they're an exception. I'm like, okay, so it's not impossible. And they're like, okay, I guess you're right. It's hard. Okay, I don't agree with that, but I'll take that, because now saying something is hard means there's a possibility. But saying it's impossible. My other thing that I always laugh at folks is when they say all. all CISOs must have a business degree. All? I can name 15 right now that don't. Okay, Eric, so maybe it wasn't all, maybe it's most. So I just want you to always be careful of these absolutes, because people love to say all and possible, when in reality, it might be 60% or 70%, but guess what? You're world class. You're in that elite 20, 30%. Right? I always love when people go in and say, something's impossible. Well, let me help you out in my career. Things are always impossible until somebody does it. And it's no longer impossible. So let's get back to our 4-minute mile. So prior to 1954, people believed it was impossible. There was a ton of false propaganda. People formed the limiting belief that it was impossible to run the 4-minute mile, to run a mile in under 4 minutes. Now, here's the issue. A lot of people tried prior to 1954 to break the 4-minute mile. What did they do? They trained harder. They ate healthy. They exercised more. They did strength training. They did muscle training. They did stretching. What's the problem? If there is a limiting belief, if there's a governor installed in your brain that says you can't do it, none of that other stuff matters. You can read all the business books you want. You can take an MBA. You can take 3 MBAs. You can go to Harvard or Wharton. But if you have a governor in your mind that says you can't do it, you're not going to be able to do it. So people did all this training, and then finally there was a gentleman by the name of Roger Bannister. In 1954, he believed that he could run a mile in under 4 minutes and not die. And he convinced himself of that. He changed the limiting belief, and in 1954, he broke the 4-minute mile. Now, here's the best part of the story. I didn't get to the best part. The best part of the story is this. If it was actually true that human beings were not meant to run a mile in under 4 minutes, if that was actually a true factual statement, and Roger Bannister was just a freak of nature, he would have ran the mile in under 4 minutes in 1954, and no one would have done it since, because he's a freak of nature. So if it was really a true factual statement, he would have been the only one in history. However, in the last 60 years, do you realize over 1,500 people have broke the 4-minute mile? Here's the best part. Within 6 weeks, in less than 2 months after Roger Bannister broke the 4-minute mile, 3 other people did. And then a year later, 20 other people did. And like I said today, it's pretty much the standard of elite athletes is to run a mile in under 4 minutes. So what Roger Bannister did is he proved it was possible. He proved that it was possible to do it. And once he proved the impossible was possible, he not only broke his limiting belief, but he broke everyone else's. Wow, you can run the 4-minute mile without dying. If Roger could do it, I could do it. And all of a sudden, that changed everything. So what I want to ask you today is, what are the 4-minute miles in your life that are holding you back? And when I say 4-minute miles, I say, what are the limiting beliefs that you believe are true that are not true, that are holding you back, that are stopping you from getting to that next level? I'm focusing on CISO, but just so you know, it can be in any area of your life. And it's funny because this weekend, when you go and hang out with people, listen, you'd be amazed when you're starting to get aware and tune in to the Limiting Belief channel airing on every airway around the country and around the world. You'll start hearing it so obviously. Now, be careful, because people don't always want to be told they have those limiting beliefs, but you're going to be amazed. Right? I was talking to a friend the other day, and they're going, Eric, it's so hard. You have no idea how hard it is to date. I'm never going to find love. All suitable mates are jerks. And I'm sitting there going, wow. And you wonder why you can't find somebody. Did you hear what you just said? Right? You're basically approaching every relationship that's not going to work out. Or the other one I hear a lot is, Eric, no matter what I do, no matter what I try, I just can't lose weight. Well, yes, that is not true, but if you believe it to be true, it's going to be a governor that's holding you back. So just start paying attention when you listen to people that without even realizing it, they have these limiting beliefs that are in place. So start raising your awareness of what are your limiting beliefs. I'll cover some of the big ones for people that want to become CISOs or CISOs. So for those that want to become a CISO, the number one limiting belief that is not true is you do not have enough experience. That by far is the biggest limiting belief. Now, how do you overcome limiting beliefs? Because I could go in and say, hey, stop that. There's two ways. One is find the Roger Bannister. Because most of your limiting beliefs are not something that no one's ever done before. So most likely somebody else has done it. So the best way to prove it's not true is to find other people that have ran the 4-minute mile. And then you prove to yourself it's absolutely possible. So start researching. If you have 5 years experience, start finding people that have had 3 and 4 years experience that have got CISO positions. Start finding other people that have less qualifications than you that are CISOs. Start reaching out to them. Start talking to them. Start finding out. You're like, but Eric, how do I do that? Social media and LinkedIn is great. You can go into LinkedIn, and I did this beforehand because I want to make sure what I'm telling you is true, and I just searched on CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, and you pick title under LinkedIn, and I just went through about 15 of them, and I found 4 right off the bat, when you look at their experience at CV, had less than 5 years technical experience. And they're CISOs. So that's one way to overcome the limiting belief, is basically by going in and showing that somebody else has done it. Somebody else has accomplished it. Now, like I said, I'm not one on comparing, but this is an area where comparison helps. It shows you that somebody else has run the 4-minute mile, which means you can. The second way to overcome it is, what are the factual reasons of why you can? Prove to yourself that it's not true. So where does it say that when you get 7 years experience in one day, boom, you magically become CISO material, but at 6 years and 364 days, you're not CISO material? Does that really make any logical sense? And whatever years, if somebody says 10 or 12, let's even pick 12 years. Does that really make sense that at 12 years, one day, you automatically now get the CISO crown? But prior to that, 3 days ago, at 11 years, you weren't CISO. It makes no logical sense, right? It's just not something that sound logic. So why are you believing that? Why can't you become a CISO with 5 years experience? If you can do the job, if you have the expertise and you have the knowledge, why in the world can't? So start producing evidence that the limiting belief has no factual basis. Push it like I did to show that it's illogical, and then just go in and convince yourself that you absolutely can. And even if no one else has, which is very, very rare with limiting beliefs, why can't you be the Roger Bannister? Why can't you be the first person to do that? You absolutely can. So that's the first one that you just have to throw out as garbage. Now, You typically do need some experience to be a CISO. So if you have no experience at all, right, you've never worked in security IT business, yeah, it's probably going to be harder. I'm never going to say impossible. Right? It's probably going to be a little harder for you to get that CISO position. But here's how you do it then. Give yourself a 5-year plan. How do I become a CISO in 5 years? What is the progression path? And then give yourself a logical path with that target in order to get there. So what I want you to do, instead of going in and creating an absolute, I do not have enough experience to become a CISO, period. That means you never, ever will be. No, one of two factors. Either say that is not true, and you can, or, and I don't like this, but if you want to go this route, I need 2 more years experience. So let's say you're at 5, and you go, Eric, I really believe I need 2 more. Great. What is the exact experience you believe you need? How can you get that exact experience and put together a path for accomplishing it? So what I want you to do is either convince yourself that it's not true, or give yourself a path that in a short period of time, 1 or 2 years, you prove that it is true. But sticking with an absolute that you will never, ever, 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 ever be CISO material is garbage, and it's going to hold you back. So not enough experience. That one, because experience is measurable, that's one that is fixable. Right? That's one that you could validate. The other one that trips up so many people wanting to become a CISO is, I'm not CISO material. And I always love that one because I'm like, what exactly is CISO material? And when did you decide that you're not CISO material? Right? That's crazy. I mean, that's one that there's really nothing factual. You've just created this term CISO material, right? Whatever that supposedly means, and you've somehow decided that you are not CISO material. Now, that one is the most dangerous because unlike experience, if you truly believe you don't have enough experience, in 5 years, you'll have more experience. So that's one that can self-fix. But if you do this broad, I'm not CISO material, that could last forever, right? That could stop you from ever becoming a CISO. So what I do there is, what's CISO material? Create a list of 30 to 40 characteristics of what CISO material is. In your mind, when you say this person has CISO material and you don't, what are the characteristics that you're looking for? And create 30 to 40 of them. Then take a yellow highlighter and start highlighting the ones you have. I would say almost all of you are going to have some, if not many. Even if you only highlight one of the 40, which I doubt, it's probably going to be 10 or 20. But even if you highlight just a few, that you do have some CISO material then. You've highlighted a few items, so you do. You might not have all, but then here's my next question. Who does? Do you really know a non-fictional real character, not a fictional character that you created, a real character that has every single one of those? Of course not. And now, by creating that list of 30 to 40, I'm going to ask you the next question. What are the 2 or 3 items that if you did have, you would believe you are CISO material, and spend the next 3 to 6 months learning them? Make them your top priority. So notice what we're doing. We're taking the limiting beliefs, we're categorizing, and then we're either proving they're not correct or giving you a path for making them correct in a short period of time. So those are the 2 big limiting beliefs of people wanting to become a CISO. Not enough experience, and I'm not CISO material. For those that are CISOs, because I know there are some of you out there, your big limiting belief is along the lines of executives don't think you're a business leader. I'm not viewed as one of the C's. I might have a C in my title, Chief Information Security Officer, but Eric, I'm the only C that doesn't get invited to the business meetings. I'm the only C that doesn't have a regular invite to the board of director meetings. I'm the only C on Fridays, the COO, CFO, CEO all go out to lunch. I never get invited. So even though I have the title, I'm not part of that group. I'm not viewed as a business leader or business executive. Now that one actually might not be a limiting belief. That might be true. Because let's face it, if you're not being invited to those meetings, they probably do view it that way. And I'll tell you the truth. I talk to a lot of executives, and unfortunately, they do view the CISO that way. Because they said, Eric, every time we include the CISO, all they do is talk technical, and we don't understand that. And they don't act at our level. They want to be technical. We want to be business. They're speaking a different language. It's not compatible, so we don't invite them. So the interesting thing with that is it's actually not a belief. It's a truth. Now, the cool thing about truths is you could fix it. So what if you start asking, hey, can we meet? And every time you meet, you talk business. Now they're going to be like, wait a second. Maybe our impression of Eric was wrong. We thought he was technical, but every time we've met with him, he's talking business, and he understands business, and he's given us business ideas, and he's asking really good questions about business. Maybe we should invite him to one of the Fridays lunch. You show up, you listen, you ask great questions, you engage, you provide value at a business level. What are they going to do? Invite you to the next one. So in that case, that's an example where it's actually a statement based on your behavior. So figure out the behavioral patterns that you need to adjust or adapt and change those behaviors. Once again, this is not something that will necessarily fix in 30 minutes, but what I tried to do here is raise your awareness, give you some tips and tricks, and now you'll start to see, okay, here's where these beliefs or problems are in place. Here's how I start to fix them, and here's how I address them. Because let me give you the reality. If you've been trying to do something for over a year and haven't been able to accomplish it, most likely it's not the technical components that are missing. It's a limiting belief that's holding you back. So if you've been struggling in any area, whether it's becoming a CISO, whether it's finding the partner that you, the love of your life, whether it's losing weight, whatever it is, if you've been trying to do it for a while and you haven't been able to, there's a 4-minute mile. There's a limiting belief. Spend some time figuring it out. And once you figure it out, everything will start changing for you. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Life of a CISO. I look forward to hearing about you breaking your 4-minute mile, and we'll see you next week.